The sound grew louder, a soft, desperate scratching, a pleading whine. Clara crouched, peering beneath the dumpster. The badger's eyes, wide and terrified, met hers for a brief second. Its paw was trapped under a twisted piece of metal debris, blood staining the muddy ground. Each shallow breath seemed a fragile thread holding it to life. "Hey! Hey! I'm here," Clara whispered, slow and calm. Her hands went to her kit, pulling out gloves and a small reinforced hook. She had faced storms, wild animals, and collapsing structures before, but the raw urgency of this moment sharpened her senses like a blade. The man shuffled backward, muttering warnings. "It's dangerous. You can't get in there. It might bite." Clara's jaw tightened. She knew the risks: wild animals, panic, city hazards, but hesitation was lethal. "Danger doesn't get to choose who lives," she murmured, voice low but unyielding. "Compassion does." She moved closer, careful to keep her steps deliberate. The badger flinched at every sound, ears flicking like antennae, nose twitching rapidly, nostrils flaring. Clara extended a gloved hand, letting the animal smell her presence. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said softly. "I just want to help." The wind picked up, rattling a nearby signpost. The badger shrieked, a high, piercing sound that drew the attention of a few late-night pedestrians. Most stopped briefly, shrugged, and walked on. Clara ignored the murmurs. Every second counted. She examined the metal pin holding the paw. It had bent awkwardly, catching the fur and pressing painfully against the bone. A simple tug could worsen the injury, but careful leverage might free it. Clara whispered encouragements as she positioned her hook. She felt the vibration of fear through the animal's body, each tremble a plea for life. "Steady. I've got you," she said, her hands moving with surgical precision. The metal scraped slightly against the concrete as she pried it loose, the badger hissing but not striking. It was terrified, but too exhausted to resist. Above, the man shook his head, muttering about risks. "You shouldn't—" But Clara had already begun. Rope from her bag was tied securely around a nearby pole to provide an anchor. Every muscle in her body tensed as she pulled the trapped limb free, careful to avoid further injury. The badger whimpered, weak but alive. The city noises faded as Clara focused entirely on the struggle before her. Her mind calculated every movement, every counterweight, every sound. The air smelled of wet metal and fur, sharp and acrid. Rain droplets from the gutters spattered her gloves as the animal's struggle slowed. The first inch of freedom came, and the badger's small body quivered violently, each movement a testament to its will to survive. Clara adjusted the hook, whispered reassurances, guiding it gently, inch by inch, toward the small patch of dry pavement she had cleared. Shadows shifted, and Clara's heart skipped. A stray dog appeared at the far end of the alley, barking aggressively. The badger froze, eyes wide with renewed terror. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. "Back! Stay back!" Her tone was calm, but commanding. The dog hesitated, whined, and retreated into the night. The badger's breathing remained rapid. Clara spoke softly, her hand resting lightly on its flank, allowing it to recognize safety. "Almost there. Just a little more." She adjusted the rope again, now using it to guide the animal carefully past jagged concrete, broken glass, and twisted metal. Every step was a test of patience, courage, and timing. One wrong movement could send the animal panicking, worsening its injuries. Clara's presence was a steady anchor, her calm voice a lifeline in a world that had turned its back on the creature. Minutes stretched as the badger's tiny, trembling body moved across the cleared path. Clara's focus was absolute. Each breath, each subtle tremor, each flash of the animal's fear monitored and mitigated. The city had become a muted backdrop, the only sounds the shallow breaths of the trapped animal and the occasional drip of water from a leaking gutter. Finally, the small flattened square of dry pavement was within reach. Clara guided the badger to lie down gently, checking its limbs for strain, its breathing for signs of shock. Her hands stayed on its body. assuring it that survival was possible. Above the alley, the man finally stepped closer, eyes wide with a mix of awe and guilt. I thought it was too late, he whispered. Clara shook her head, eyes never leaving the animal. It's never too late if someone refuses to walk away. She brushed mud from the badger's fur, murmuring softly as its chest rose and fell more steadily. The rain eased into a soft drizzle, and Clara crouched beside the badger, her shadow stretching across the wet pavement. The first step towards safety had been made. The next steps, treatment, transport, and rehabilitation, were coming. But for now, life had been reclaimed from the brink. The city may have ignored it, may have mocked it, may have whispered that survival was impossible. But Clara Bennett, call sign White Summit, had refused to abandon it, and sometimes that refusal is all it takes to rewrite a fate that seemed sealed. The drizzle had softened to a light mist, turning the alley into a quiet, almost sacred space. Clara knelt beside the badger, her hand steady on its trembling body. Its breathing, once frantic, had begun to normalize, each shallow gasp a small victory. But the rescue was far from over. The animal's trapped leg was injured, and the makeshift patch of dry pavement wasn't enough to guarantee safety. From the street above, the murmur of voices grew. Concerned neighbors had gathered, their curiosity overcoming their earlier indifference. Some whispered doubts, some muttered warnings. "It's wild, dear. It could attack," said one. Another shook their head. "She can't handle it alone." Clara didn't flinch. Her eyes scanned the alley, assessing every angle. She had faced larger, more dangerous rescues, collapsed barns, trapped foxes in storm drains, and even a rare snow leopard caught in a fence. But this was personal. Every creature's life mattered. Her call sign, White Summit, wasn't just a badge. It was a declaration. No life left behind. The badger whimpered, sensing the gathering crowd. Clara leaned closer, murmuring softly, "I know it's scary, but you're not alone." She carefully lifted its body, coaxing it into a padded carrier she had brought. The animal froze, then slowly allowed itself to be guided, trusting the calm strength of her hands. A sudden commotion from the entrance startled both Clara and the badger. A car horn blared. A group of teenagers had wandered into the alley, laughter cutting through the mist. The badger hissed, flinching violently. Clara's voice cut sharply through the noise. "Back! Everyone, give space!" Her tone was calm but absolute. The teenagers froze, then stepped aside, eyes wide. Minutes passed, and finally the path to safety was clear. Clara led the way, carrying the carrier carefully, every step deliberate to keep the animal calm. The veterinarians and wildlife specialists she had called were waiting at the edge of the street, lights illuminating their kits and stretchers. Their expressions shifted from skepticism to respect as Clara approached. "This way," she instructed, voice firm. "Gentle, steady. Let's make sure it gets the care it needs." The specialists moved quickly, following her precise directions. One secured the carrier on a gurney, while another examined the animal's trapped limb. Clara stayed close, hands lightly on the carrier, whispering reassurances. The crowd, silent now, watched as the specialists lifted the badger into the ambulance. Clara's face was streaked with rain and grime, yet her expression remained calm, composed. One young onlooker approached cautiously. I thought it was hopeless," he admitted. Clara shook her head gently, her eyes on the vehicle as it prepared to depart. "Hope is never gone," she said softly. "It only requires someone willing to act when everyone else steps back." The ambulance doors closed, the motor hummed, and the vehicle disappeared into the mist. The badger's small, fragile breaths echoed faintly inside, a rhythm of life Clara had fought to preserve. She stood for a long moment, the weight of the rescue settling over her, a mix of exhaustion and quiet triumph. The man who had hesitated at the start approached, hesitating. I shouldn't have stepped back," he murmured. Clara gave a small, understanding smile. "Most people do," she said. "But the choice to move forward, that's what matters. Compassion doesn't wait for permission." As she walked away from the alley, the rain had stopped completely, leaving only a damp, quiet city. The badger, once ignored and abandoned, now had a chance at survival, a life reclaimed because someone refused to turn away. And sometimes, she thought, that single act of courage is enough to echo farther than any fear, leaving a mark not just on a life saved, but on the hearts of those who witnessed it. Because strength isn't measured by force, it's measured by the lives we refuse to abandon.